On the occasion of this webinar, I am very pleased to share with the participants in this event some of our monitoring experience of the persecution of religious groups by tax administrations. The unfortunate experience of太极门in Taiwan presents some strange similarities with a case opposing Jehovah's Witnesses to the French state, about which the European Court of Human Rights issued a ruling in 2011. In 1996, the then Taiwanese government launched a crackdown on groups labeled as Xiaojiao, or cults, which, according to most scholars who have studied the incident, was politically motivated. The crackdown also involved太极門, although it had not taken political sides. In January of the same year, 1996, a French parliamentary report classifying Jehovah's Witnesses as a harmful sect or cult resulted in various forms of discrimination by state bodies, in particular the tax administration. In both cases, there were accusations of fraud and tax evasion on hand-to-hand gifts, also called manual gifts. For both organizations, it was the beginning of a long obstacle course through their domestic courts. In January 1996, the French National Assembly published a report about 172 allegedly dangerous sects, which were almost portrayed as criminal associations. That blacklist, as it was soon called by the media, had a devastating impact on those religious and spiritual groups. Jehovah's Witnesses were on that blacklist. Following that report, they were discriminated against, stigmatized, ostracized, both in their private life and in public life. Steps were taken by state administrations to marginalize them and treat them differently from mainline religions. In particular, the tax authorities carried out an audit. On the basis of the information gathered in that audit, it was given notice to declare the hand-to-hand gifts that the association had received from 1993 to 1996 and to pay taxes. This was a sudden new interpretation of the General Tax Code that was applied to the sole movement of Jehovah's Witnesses. The association refused and asked that the tax exemption applicable to gifts and legacies to liturgical associations and authorized religious congregations continued to be applied as every year before 1993. As the Association of Jehovah's Witnesses had not submitted the declaration requested by the tax authorities, it was subjected to an automatic taxation procedure in respect to hand-to-hand gifts which it had received. The tax administration claimed that the hand-to-hand gifts, and I quote, had been disclosed to the tax authorities in the course of the accounting audits to which it had been subjected. End of the quotation. The term disclosed is a key word in the French taxation administrative language because it implies that the so-called disclosure was a voluntary move by the association to be taxed on the gifts they had received. But this was not the case, as the audit was not requested by the Association of Jehovah's Witnesses, but was imposed on them by the administration and could not be refused. Moreover, there is no legal obligation to disclose hand-to-hand gifts to the administration. There was therefore a clear manipulation of the administrative terminology to corner the Association of Jehovah's Witnesses and, as it appeared afterwards, to kill them financially. Another similarity with太极門case. In May 1998, the association was notified of a complimentary tax assessment for the equivalent of about, and you will not believe it, of about 45 million euros. The association stressed that the tax claimed concerned donations by 250,000 persons over a period of 4 years. That's to say, an average of 4 euros per person and per month for the period 1993-1996. During the next 6 years, the Association of Jehovah's Witnesses used all domestic remedies that it could to assert its rights. But in the meantime, the amount claimed by the tax administration had risen from the unbelievable amount of 45 million euros to more than 57 million euros. A real nightmare. That's the reason why the Jehovah's Witnesses decided to apply to the European Court of Human Rights. They did it in February 2005. They lodged a complaint against France with the European Court of Human Rights, which is based in Strasbourg. It alleged that the imposed taxation of hand-to-hand gifts interfered with its right to manifest and exercise its freedom of religion as guaranteed by Article 9 of the European Convention. The procedures lasted until 2011, so 6 years, and focused primarily on the controversial interpretation of the so-called disclosure of hand-to-hand gifts and the allegedly undue interference of the state in the freedom of religion of Jehovah's Witnesses through a punitive taxation. The association claimed that in imposing the disputed and exorbitant tax, the state interfered with the act of worship itself. If the disputed taxation were to be confirmed at that time, it would have resulted in the seizure and sale of the battle, bringing about the loss of a place of worship and the headquarters of the association. The lawyer of the association, Philip Gunny, that I personally know, argued that collective practice of a religion implies the possibility of relying on material resources generally obtained through the adherents' contributions. It implied the right to rent or acquire a place of worship and to produce literature. The contributions are religious in nature and represent its main source, namely about 85% in this case. He contended that, and I quote, subjecting these to taxation would inevitably lead to liquidation, as the state would have the right to sell the mortgage property, and the quotation. Lastly, he added that the state interfered with its freedom of religion through a punitive tax motivated by the desire to repress the religious activities of the denominational minorities which had been blacklisted as sects or cults. Now, what was the decision of the European Court? The decision was made public at the end of June 2011, and the European Court found a violation of Article 9, so the right to freedom of religion, by France in this case, noting that the supplementary tax assessment, and I quote from the judgment, had concerned the entirety of the manual or hand-to-hand gifts received by the association, although they represented the main source of its funding. Its operating resources having thus been cut, it had no longer been able to guarantee to the followers the free exercise of their religion in practical terms, unquote. By a judgment a few days later, the 5th of July 2011, the court held that France was to reimburse the 4.5 million euros for the taxes unduly claimed by the tax administration that the Association of Jehovah's Witnesses had paid under coercion, and an additional amount of 55,000 euros for various costs and expenses. It cannot be said that it was a happy hand in the usual sense to this saga, because the damage caused to the association and its members went far beyond the financial issue, but that's another story, and that would be worth explaining in another webinar. There is unfortunately no Asian court of human rights in Asia where Taiji men could lodge a complaint, but it's to be hoped that the current government of Taiwan will be able to repair the damage caused to Taiji men under previous governments since the mid-1990s. I thank you for your attention.